Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast, brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairytale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer created exclusively for Walt Disney World weddings and vow renewals. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I share real-world planning advice and money-saving tips from couples who've celebrated at Disney parks and resorts and on the Disney Cruise Line. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast shares real experiences and expert insights from Disney destinations around the world. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Catheryn Blanchette about her ceremony at the Wedding Pavilion, with a reception at California Grill and a dessert party at Germany Promenades A, B, and C in EPCOT. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Catheryn.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being on the show today. I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
That's definitely my fault. I'm the Disney lover for sure. But actually, the fun story about that is we took a trip to Disney World, and it was my fiancé at the time, his first time going to Disney. So I got to introduce him to the magic of Disney. And while we were there, we got engaged. I definitely think that had something to do with wanting to come back and get married there. You know, we did look around locally in town, and, you know, for the price of what everything was, you know, we kind of compared it to what we knew of what Disney pricing was. And we were like, you know, it's not too much of a leap if we do it right. So we decided to go ahead and do it.
That's fantastic. How did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
My mom was definitely very excited too, and she was definitely a big help and a big part of our day. And then, of course, the rest of our family was excited too. Friends were like, "Wow, I can't believe you're going there!" And it was definitely pretty cool to have a wedding at Disney, I would say.
Wonderful. How many guests did you invite, and how many were able to make the trip?
So we ended up having about 32 guests total. But the initial thought was to have, let's do 50. But then it did not work out that way. But we're definitely glad, because the aim was to keep it small. Just pretty much close family and a couple friends.
Got it. Did you set up a room block for your guests?
We did. We thought it would be in the best interest, just because we weren't 100% sure, you know, what our friends and family's travel plans look like. And we wanted to make sure that they had rooms available to them, because I know Disney can get crazy with room bookings. So we did do a block, but we started on the minimum side because we knew that it was easier to add rooms than it would have been to take away. I did end up having to add a couple of rooms, so it worked out pretty good.
That's great. What resorts did you choose?
So we chose Coronado Springs because that's our favorite resort. And then we also had All-Star Movies. I hadn't stayed there myself, but I know that one's pretty affordable. And then just a bump up, I chose Pop Century because I know that's a very popular resort as well. And funny enough, actually, no one chose that one. But we had some at All-Star Movies and some at Coronado with us.
That's great. How did you guys choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
So we definitely chose based on pricing and budgeting. So I know that obviously Saturday, Sunday, even Friday are the best days traditionally. But when looking at Disney pricing, it's definitely more advantageous for us to do a day of the week. And then also going hand in hand with that, we did a morning ceremony so that we could do a brunch. So that kind of all tied into trying to stay in our budget. I was really, really trying really hard to do that while still doing exactly what I wanted for my wedding. Definitely don't have any regrets on that.
So how did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
So keeping in mind budget friendly, you know, if I could do whatever I wanted, obviously I would have chosen to get married in front of the castle. But we really gravitated towards the Wedding Pavilion. Beautiful location, beautiful place. And it was kind of a no-brainer. I mean, I've never been to that location myself, but just seeing the pictures of other brides, I mean, it was great. And it was cost effective, so we definitely went with that. And then as far as reception, That one I wasn't necessarily sure. So I definitely took a lot of time looking at all the possible venues and getting overwhelmed by that. And we actually went back and forth a lot on, California Grill, Citricos, all these other restaurants. And so we eventually went with California Grill because, we did like their menu and the space was gorgeous. We really loved the fact that you could see the Magic Kingdom from the restaurant. Like that was just incredible. So that's how we ultimately picked that one.
That's great. And so sometimes people are worried about using California Grill because you have to stick with their menus, but you can usually swap items among the menus. How did that work out for you?
And I was concerned about that because I had done my research and I looked at the wedding guide and, so I did know that California Grill was strict. So I did make sure I looked at their menus and I did look at their past menus just to kind of see. And I mean, it's similar, but I actually was successful in having them change the menu a little bit for me, which, I wasn't going to be super devastated if my request didn't go through, but I'm glad that I was able to get a couple of, I guess, alterations to the menu. I mean, the food ended up being amazing. I have to say, I'm definitely glad that we chose California Grill. I guess if the menu is important to you and you really want to choose your item specifically, then okay, I can see how the California Grill would not be your ideal selection. But for me, I didn't necessarily have like a specific menu I had to have. So I just, I wasn't put off by that.
That's interesting. What menu alterations were you able to get approved?
I was using the brunch menu, and one of their items was a romaine salad, and I requested to have a caprese salad instead because that was my husband's favorite salad and some of my family members, and they were okay with that. But I did my research, and I had seen in a past menu that they've offered a caprese salad, or it was probably even for a dinner or lunch menu, so I knew that they could do it. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And then one thing I did request was to do an egg station because I did see it on one of their previous menus. That one did get shot down, but that's just because they said they didn't have, the manpower for that one. But then the other thing I requested was to do Mickey waffles instead of the biscuits for the chicken and biscuits, and that one, of course, they were able to do that one pretty easily. So just a couple little edits, nothing too crazy. So I was lucky in that they were able to go ahead and do that for me.
Those are great swaps. And I'm glad you mentioned looking at older menus because I have menus going back years for California Grill and all the other venues where you can have a wedding at Walt Disney World on my Fairytale Weddings Guide website on the wedding menus page. So that's a great idea to go back through old ones so that you know it is something California Grill has done in the past. And then they can just let you know if there's a restriction like Catheryn ran into where they didn't have the manpower to do something, but other items they were able to swap.
Yes. And again, it was amazing. Food was great. Don't hesitate on that.
Now, you mentioned that you were really trying to stick with a budget. Do you have any tips for how you did that? Swaps you made or ways that you were able to save money?
Yes, and actually that was one extra thing we did. They have a dessert trio in their menu, and we actually went ahead and nixed that because we were already doing the wedding cake. And so that took off $15 on the per person price. So that was kind of nice because the caprese salad was a little bit extra, so it balanced out.
Did you guys use any outside vendors for your event?
We did. I had an outside vendor for my photography and my videography, as well as my makeup artist. Obviously, our officiant too. So we had Randy as our officiant, and then we did root photography. For our videography, we went with Trinity, and my makeup artist was Amanda Mabry. And they were all great and all amazing, and I love all of them.
How did you choose your officiant?
To be honest, a lot of my picks for my outside vendors, including my officiant, were from the Disney Weddings Facebook page because everybody asks for suggestions and shares, the vendors that they loved. And so it was a lot of back and forth and just kind of doing my own research, going to their individual websites and reaching out to them through their contact pages and kind of seeing, who I meshed with personality wise, I guess. And so I chose Randy from that when she was great. She's a big nerd like us, so that was pretty cool.
What kind of entertainment did you have at the ceremony and the reception?
We went with a DJ through Disney. We had DJ Steve, And he was great and amazing. And honestly, if it my choice, I just wanted to do probably originally like maybe a violinist or something, but my mom was insistent on having a DJ, so I was like, okay, let me look. But I'm glad we did because he made it great and my small group of people was up and dancing the whole time, so it was a great time.
So we talked a little bit about customizing the menu at California Grill. Do you have any particular favorites among the menu items you had or cake flavors that you would recommend?
Oh, yes, I could talk about that. So as far as the California Grill menu, they had their steak and eggs. That steak, I'm not even joking, was like the best steak I've ever had in my life. It was amazing. All of my guests loved it. All of the food was amazing, but that steak stood out as just being exceptional. And I'm not a big steak eater. Like I'll order a hamburger at a steakhouse, but that steak was amazing. And then as far as our cake, that's something I was very excited about. We had a three-tiered cake. My first flavor was red velvet with the cream cheese frosting. My second flavor was chocolate with Bavarian cream and strawberries. And my third flavor was the white confetti cake with lemon cream and raspberries. And that cake was amazing. It was so delicious.
That's great. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about your dessert party in Epcot?
Yes, we did a dessert party in the evening. We all kept it on the same day. We sort of made it one full day because we had guests coming at different times and we weren't sure if doing like a welcome party or a dessert party the night before would be a great idea. So we kept all of our events on the same day. We did have kind of like a little brief get together the night before in the resort, but that wasn't anything official. But yes, we did the dessert party at Epcot in the evening, and that was a great hit.
Do you have any menu items from that you would recommend?
Yeah, that one. We started with one of the packages that they had. I don't remember which one it was, but the items that we did the Mickey pretzels because I think those are just so cute. And then the one thing that I definitely knew I wanted to do was the donuts flambe, and that was really great and cool. And then we also had the Mickey macarons and we had the cheeseburger spring rolls, which I had actually never had before, but I heard great things about them nonstop, so I had to get them for myself, but they were amazing. And then we also had these little Mickey parfaits. It had a little Mickey chocolate face on the top, and they were so adorable, and I'm glad that I had them. And then I think finally we did the Dole Whip cream puffs, and those were great as well.
How did you choose Germany Promenade for your party?
So actually, that wasn't our original first choice for Epcot locations. We actually originally wanted to do the French Pavilion, the terrace, because initially, I guess, our guest count was a little bit bigger when we were first starting wedding planning. We were at 50, and for that one, for the terrace, you needed to have a minimum of 50 guests. And so we actually changed it because when we came in closer to 30, that venue was no longer an option for us. So I kind of looked around and I was like, Germany actually is a pretty great choice because the only other better venue is Italy because that's directly at the far end of the circle and the ball is right there. So Germany's right next to it. And so you could see everything and it was gorgeous. And I'm glad that we picked Germany. And we picked A, B, and C just so we could get a little extra room for our guests because we had some sitting tables and some cocktail standing tables and it worked out. We had plenty of space for everything. So I'm definitely glad that we chose Germany.
And did you add a ride mix in?
We did. We went on the Guardians of the Galaxy ride afterwards, and that was awesome. That was such a hit and a big surprise. We kept it a surprise for most people. And regrettably, one of my relatives got sick on it, but she's older, she's my grandmother's sister. And they were all happy to be there and excited. And I guess maybe we should have told them it was a little bit more of a roller coaster than I think they were thinking. But they loved it. They loved it. All of our guests loved it. So it was pretty cool being the only people there.
That's awesome. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how your wedding day all fit together?
From the very beginning, when I had to wake up to get ready for makeup. And I gotta tell you guys, it happened so fast. From the moment I woke up in the morning, it was just go, go, go. Let's see. So our ceremony was a 9:30 ceremony, which meant I had to be up. I was talking to Amanda, a couple days before so we could get a timeline together, and also talking with Nate from Root Photography, because we had to coordinate everybody showing up at the right time. So I'm trying to remember. I want to say I was up around 5:30 that morning. And as soon as I got up, not even like 5 or 10 minutes later, I have a knock on my door, and there's Amanda at the door, and I'm like, all right, let's go. And so got into the makeup, and then it felt like immediately after, oh, the Roots are here. So the Roots come, and then David and his wife come from Trinity. So now my room is full of people, and then my mom comes, and so now it probably took a couple hours to get all that stuff done. And so we were doing a first look in the morning. I chose to do a first look before the ceremony and also some portrait photos. So we probably started walking to the lobby right around 8 o'clock is when we had that scheduled to do. So we did the first looks and we were making great time, actually. I did a first look with my husband and I did a first look with my father. So we got both of those out of the way. And then it was only about 8:30 by the time we were finished with that. So everybody else went over to the pavilion and we stuck around and did some photos around the Grand Floridian where we were at that morning. So we did a lot of photos in the morning and then we got into the car and we drove over to the wedding pavilion. And so we had our ceremony at 9:30. It was amazing. Immediately after that, we had our guests go over to the Contemporary to go to California Grill for our reception. It was an 11, I guess, 10:30 technically. It was our pre-reception or cocktail hour. But obviously, Hank and I, we stuck back and we did some photos with Nate and we walked the grounds of the Grand Floridian to the monorail and we did photos on the monorail so we could take that over to the California Grill. And we got all of those photos done. And then, of course, all right, cool. A reception happened. We walked in. We probably got there. They took us to a room in the back, like a staging area. And then when it was time for us to walk in, I want to say it was about 11:30. And so, yay, we do our reception. The timeline for that was we had to be out of there by 3 p.m. So 3 p.m., we were all finished with the reception there. And then we did have a little bit of a break in the day because our dessert party was slated to start at 7:30. We needed everybody to meet us in front of EPCOT. Be there, don't be late at 7:30. So as far as what my guest did during that little 4 hours, I'm not sure, but we told everybody make sure you're there. So we did have a little bit of downtime in the day. I went back to my hotel room, but I tried very hard not to put my head down and rest because I knew that if I closed my eyes, I was going to pass out. So we just had a little bit of a break there in the middle of the day, and then we changed and got ready for the dessert party, and we headed on over. And so 7:30 p.m. we were meeting in front of EPCOT, and then we walked over with the cast member, and we went to the Germany Pavilion, and then we had our fireworks dessert party, did our photos, and it was amazing and wonderful. And let's see, that was probably around 9:30 when that finished. And then after that, as we walked over to the Guardians ride, and then we did that. And then by the time we came out, there was nobody in the park. It was really cool. So it was really an all-day event. But like I said, it happened so fast, blink of an eye. Close your eyes and you'll miss it. So it was a full day.
Okay, so out of all of this, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
My favorite memory? Just getting married to the love of my life. I was nervous. My stomach was in knots the whole time, but it was worth it. Just getting married and being married was my favorite.
So when you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects of the event where you focused your attention or your budget?
I thought my most important things when I was planning the wedding was, one, to keep it small, to stay on budget. But two, the decor. I didn't want to go crazy on decor because that could very quickly snowball into being a giant number, a giant price tag. But it was important to me that, it had certain things that I liked, and I wanted it to be pretty and follow my color scheme and my, my idea. So there was a lot of back and forth with our Disney floral person. Her name was Stephanie. She was great and very communicative with me on that one. So I was able to get my decor exactly how I wanted, budget friendly. but still beautiful. And then probably the cake flavor. I think I was most excited to choose my cake flavors, and I'm glad that I was because they came out amazing. I'll never forget that cake.
Were there any aspects that were less important where you saved your money or just your effort?
I'll be honest, I wasn't super concerned, like I said earlier, about entertainment during the reception. But I let my mom take a hold of that one and do the DJ. But honestly, I wouldn't have minded saving a little bit of money and just maybe hiring a solo instrument. I think it still would have been pretty and gorgeous, but it did work out having the DJ there. It was a great time. And again, saving some money was paying attention to your decor, not going too crazy, because that's definitely a money saver. Is just sort of a few specific pieces instead of trying to do floral everywhere. I've been asking for a mixture of maybe faux flowers or fresh flowers, whichever one is. And actually, we padded our floral with a lot of greenery, and I think that made it look really beautiful too.
That's interesting. Okay, so you used a lot more greenery. Did you use faux flowers to help cut the costs?
Some of it, I requested, if the faux version, was a cheaper price tag, then I didn't mind. But so we had a mix of faux and fresh because some stuff actually the faux it was more expensive, oddly enough. But yeah, so my idea, my theme was kind of like medieval looking, kind of like fantasy style. So having my bouquet and like my centerpieces on my tables were a lot of greenery and floral, but also like some fruits. Like we had berries and pomegranates to kind of give that like medieval feast kind of looking thing. And they did a great job on that. But yes, because I know, floral adds up very quickly. It's gorgeous and it's beautiful, but floral can be very expensive. So I sort of padded it out with having a lot of greenery and some berries for color, and it worked out.
That's a great tip. And then you also mentioned that you focused on just key pieces instead of going for everything. Do you have recommendations of those?
Yes, so for my tables, I actually had like two styles of centerpieces. So we used three big round tables, and then we had a couple like smaller square tables that we used. And so they weren't massive, but I did my bigger centerpieces for the three main tables, and that was like a big round flower assortment with like the floral and the fruits and the greenery. And then on my other tables, I did sort of a smaller centerpiece, and I did some greenery with some candles. So, instead of doing like giant, massive centerpieces on every single table, I added some variety, and doing that kind of helped also to cut down on cost. And then for my cake table, I put my bouquet on it, so I didn't have to get like a big floral piece for that. Although we did have some flower petals on the table, but I did use my bouquet kind of like as floral for that, which I thought it came out pretty good. And then for our ceremony at the wedding pavilion, we kept it simple. We did rose petals on the aisle, but I didn't do anything big up and down the aisles. Like initially I wanted to, of course, like giant candelabras with flowers on it. That would have been amazing, but we just did the rose petals, and then at the table at the front, we did the Beauty and the Beast rose, and that was it. And it looked amazing. So I don't have any regrets on keeping the floral at a minimum.
Those are great tips. Now, did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
Yes, there was a couple of minor things, but it didn't ruin the day or anything. One thing was for my cake. So Disney automatically defaults to saving your top tier. And I did specifically ask them to put in my BEO, serve my top tier because, we were coming from out of town. The rooms don't have refrigerators in them. So, I didn't have a place to store the cake. So I wanted it to be served, and it was in the BEO, but of course, day of comes and they did not serve my top tier. So I was a little disappointed in that because that was my red velvet flavor and I wanted to try it there. But it didn't ruin the day or anything, but I did notice that. And then one other minor thing, for the dessert party, we had requested Mickey and Minnie macarons, but my mom's the one who's really upset about this. We had a specific picture, a photo that we had of a previous Disney wedding that had Mickey macarons, and they were very specific look of the Mickey and Minnie ones. And so we sent them this. And we're like, we would like these. What's the price to do these? And she gave me the price, and I was like, let's do it. Great. And I even like reiterated it. I think, we want them to look like the picture. They did not look like the picture, but that's okay. They still tasted good. But so just a couple minor things, but pretty much everything else was exactly as we had planned and envisioned it. So it really wasn't disappointing at all.
That's wonderful. Was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about, and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
Say maybe just worrying about just the day happening itself. Is everything going to go smoothly or go correctly? That kind of thing. Because, you're kind of leaving it in the hands of Disney, but then day of, I would say everything flowed smoothly. All of the Disney cast members are pros. They know what they're doing. And, that weight lifted off my shoulders like immediately. Like I didn't have to worry about anything day of. It was an amazing success. So yeah, I would just say just let go of the reins and just let Disney take care of you.
Is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
To be honest, no. My day was amazing. It was exactly like how I wanted. I would say maybe if money wasn't an issue and I could do whatever, then yeah, okay, I would have a totally different ceremony and reception. But no, I really wouldn't do anything different. It was a magical day and it was great to spend it with friends and family. And like I said, Disney pulled it off and it was just more than I could have asked for. I wouldn't do anything different.
Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
I would say definitely go in with a budget in mind because it's very easy to stray from that. And also don't be afraid to communicate with your planner or your floral planner about what you want. I got lucky in my Disney coordinators and they were great and very communicative. But yeah, if you want something, ask for it. If you're not sure about something, ask about it because you don't want there to be any surprises, when that final bill comes.
Well, Catheryn, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you so much, Carrie. This was great, and I hope that I've inspired someone to have their wedding at Disney.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. You can find past episodes and photo galleries for each show at DisneyWeddingPodcast.com or listen wherever you get your podcasts. For even more inspiration and planning tips, follow the Disney Wedding Podcast and Fairytale Weddings Guide on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, download the ebook version of Carrie Hayward's Fairytale Weddings Guide at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.